Awesome. Well, welcome everybody to our conversation today. We've got like some really cool new research we're going to walk you through here in a little bit. Really excited to have been done doing this with Braydan Young and the team at SlashExperts. As you can tell, we are both in a hotel. We are. What did we do the math? You're 12 floors below me, I think.
Yeah, I'm in the basement. You're on the
I
30th
mean,
floor up there.
well, I don't know. This is just what I was assigned. So we're doing this live today from the Six Sense Breakthrough Conference at the Hotel Fontainebleau, at the very far end of the strip. And when I say far end of the strip, like so, there's the strip, and like you can see the regular hotels are like way the heck down there. So we're way up here north. But as you were saying, Brandon, this is a pretty nice place.
Yeah, I mean, like I haven't been outside in a couple days, which is very
Right.
big. I
Yeah.
think like you feel like you're outside because the restaurants look like they're outside, but like I probably need to go get outside air at some point because it's been 3 days of being inside. Which
That's kind of one. I mean, that's kind of how they get you, right? I remember like I've been, the conference at Mandalay Bay or like the Venetian. You literally just are inside the entire time. But it's supposed to be a nice day today. I'm hoping to get outside for a little bit of a walk because these are long days here. But
and maybe
let's
to
get
some
into it.
concerts.
Yeah, no, thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Matt Heinz from Heinz Marketing. Excited to have you here for this is really the first time we have released this data. So we've worked on this for the last couple months. This concept of proof to performance and the gap that we're seeing in the market. And I want to plant a seed for you right now. If you're not thinking about proof velocity, that term, I want you to think about proof velocity in your pipeline, in your metrics. I think you're going to, by the end of this session, you're going to want to make that a priority in your organization. So we're calling this the state of go-to-market innovation in B2B for 2026. We got feedback from over 450 go-to-market leaders to talk about this. And so if you're planning for 2026, I think what you're going to see today is going to change how you allocate dollars and how you think about, especially mid to late funnel, creating velocity for your teams. Maybe, but as we get started, Braydan, just introduce yourself. So Braydan Young, co-founder of Sendoso, was telling a fun coffee story before this. Just talk a little bit about sort of like SlashExperts and like what were you trying to get out of this? Like what were you seeing in the market that we wanted to try to validate?
Yeah, so I'm the CEO slash experts. Before that, the co-founder of Sendoso, which is a gifting platform. I just love the startup game. So for some reason, just keep going and building new companies. But one of the big things we saw at Sendoso was a lot of people would come in, and the only direction they had was to take a demo. Like, hey, go and talk to sales. And but what a lot of them wanted to do is talk to a customer. We'd see them pop up in communities and ask questions like, hey, like, does anyone like this tool? Is this something that you would use again? And so all these back channels were happening. And we're like, we should encourage these back channels and like not make it
Yeah.
hard for someone to get the answers they're looking for, not from someone in sales, but from someone who's a user of the product. So we were like, hey, like let's build an actual directory where folks can go and find a customer and book a time directly with them and have that be the first or second or third step in the sales cycle. And we'll call it SlashExperts. So the reason we call it that is because if you look at any domain, sendoso.com/experts was the concept. But it's been cool to see like how fast this has taken off, where individuals want the information, but sometimes like it's hard to find the data points. It's hard to talk to existing customers, and our goal is to make it easier. And this report was awesome to see because it kind of fulfilled exactly what we've seen in the market, where folks
Yeah.
are like, yeah, we're seeing a lot of conversations happen off our website where like we're not part of the conversation. People are getting the information they're looking for, but we're
Yeah.
not part of it. And so
Right.
it was great to see this data and kind of have that proof of like, all right, we're onto something, that this is something that should grow.
Well, and sometimes you do research like this, and you're like, "Oh, wow, this really isn't a thing," you know.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
this is where it was quite the opposite in the research that we saw. And it's been interesting to be here the last couple of days at Breakthrough, and to be hanging out with a lot of more advanced marketers, people that are leaning into more complex selling cycles, where there's a lot of moving parts, right? And you can't orchestrate all of it purely digitally with your systems. Like you have to get humans involved in that process, and you listen to people talk about the pain and the problems they have, and everyone's complaining about having to do twice as much work for less results and deals taking longer to get done, conversion rates getting worse. And you and I have both seen that in the market, right?
Yeah.
Like there's like most reps are saying that they're not hitting their quota. Like almost half of respondents say they're missing their forecast by over 20%. These are problems. And then deals dropping between evaluation and proposal 27%. Now we can sit here and argue, well, there's always been a funnel, there's always been conversion rates. But at the executive experience here yesterday, Brent Adamson talked about customer confidence and customer confidence in the decision they're making, not confidence in you, but confidence that they're solving the right problem. And oftentimes, if they don't have that inherent confidence internally, if that isn't something that's baked into how they're thinking about the problem, the deal can die and you could have no idea why. And it's really hard to get it going again.
Yeah.
So I think what that leads to is kind of this idea of the sort of the broken playbook, right? The fact that we continue to throw money at these problems, we continue to invest in new digital channels. There's new tactics being leveraged on a regular basis. Many of those tactics are top and middle of funnel. So our solution oftentimes is to try to throw money into more leads, more opportunities. We're not solving in that the inherent problem of engagement and conversion, right? Not just getting into demos and people seeing what you're saying, but people understanding and having confidence this is actually going to solve a problem. It's been interesting. I'd love to get your comment, right on that, as well as some of these new go-to-market plays we're seeing, which have promise but are not sufficient on their own.
There's so many cool new AI tools that are out there that make a lot of really really bad habits that we developed, I would say, like in like the early 2010s, where calling and emails were like it got at some point where like you could send out mass emails and you could get a response. And so many of the AI tools today make that easy again. So like you
Mhm.
can send out 10,000 emails in an hour and hope to get like one or two response. Like it's one of those things where like it didn't work back then, even though your response is better. And like now with people using these AI tools, yes, emails are more personalized, but everyone knows that it's not a legit message. So email, I get tens of hundreds of like LinkedIn messages these days that are like, hey, like buy my product. And you're like, this is not the best way to reach out. I don't even know what you do. And
Yeah.
so like I think so many of those channels are so saturated, there's so much noise out there, especially in the digital channels, which AI has made easier for all of us, that it's I just don't think it scales. I think it gets worse before it gets better. And so if you hear about a cool tool, usually it's because one of your friends or peers told you about it. Or at the conference you and I are at right now, I mean, like seeing people in person and seeing booths is a big, huge thing that actually works. Is like that face to face conversation is more important than ever.
It does, but if you think about even here, right? Like I get an email from someone that something sounds interesting, I might take the time to explore it, but that's then me saying, I think it's okay, but is it really okay? Is that really
Yeah.
something that's cool? Someone spends a ton of money on a booth here. I'm like, you get a little more time to explore it and you get to answer your questions, but like it's someone you don't know working that booth. But then if you, like at breakfast this morning, I saw you downstairs, you're like, if you say, hey, you should go check out this, there's social proof, there's connection. Like
Yeah.
that happens in the natural world all the time. And I'm kind of leading the witness a little bit, but like part of the job here is like, how do we orchestrate that in a more organized, efficient, predictable, responsible way? And it's totally possible. I think the one thing that is interesting about the new go-to-market plays is the community-led growth piece, which is the third on this list and can be one of the trickier ones to engage because if you create a community and then just go pitch slap a bunch of people in it, it's going to be a glorified mailing list and it's not going to stick around very long. But I do think building and fostering communities is a great place for your prospects and customers to get together to have some more of those natural conversations. It may not be specific to this deal that needs to close this quarter, but at least it's moving in that right direction.
Yeah. I think like with if you have people that are true believers and that love your product, it used to be like what you do is you do a case study with them and you put that front and center on your site.
Yep.
And you hope that that converts or gives enough social proof to folks to be like, oh yeah, like you work with the ABC company and that person, and it does a little bit. It gives you the social proof,
Yep.
but today I think that there needs to be a conversation. I think that like having that person being able to hop on with prospects and with
Mhm.
customers, I think only helps drive pipeline.
Yep. And I think what that all leads me to think about is this confidence gap we're seeing in the market. And so, if you're buying a pair of jeans online, like there's fairly low risk to doing that, right? Like if you need gym shorts, you can go to Amazon. There's gonna be like 8,000 gym shorts. I don't know which one's right, but I do know if I buy it and I don't like it, I'll just send it back and they'll take
Yep.
it back. When it comes to more considered purchases, like that's not an option, right? And I think oftentimes, like we think of this as a buying process, but our prospects oftentimes subliminally think of this as a don't screw up and get fired process. So, like, if you're making a big decision that's a lot of money, that the impact of the product or service you're buying is going to have a big impact on your organization, do you have confidence in that decision? Do you have confidence and proof that it's going to work? And there's no guarantees on this, but I think the data is showing us where deals are dying. And it's one thing to say, I'm going to evaluate this. It's another thing to say, oh, I think this is a good idea. But if you don't pull the trigger, that's often a sign that the confidence doesn't exist. It needs to be there.
And I think so much of the demo process today is you hop on the phone with, let's say, maybe sometimes you get lucky and you have like 3 or 4 people and you do a demo, you show the product and you go, great, like I'll go ahead and move forward on it. Like and then you're hoping that those people become champions enough to sell it internally,
Right.
which is one of those things that just doesn't happen all the time. I mean, someone might love your product, but you're trying to empower them to go and actually sell internally and get the budget for it is a big leap sometimes, as you said, unless like the confidence is there that this is going to help them actually move the needle to sell more of their product or whatever the solution might be, which I think is why we see the last one here is like the 27% that die mid funnel, because maybe you
Yeah.
get someone excited about it enough, maybe you have a second or third call, but then at some point they're like, I don't even know if this is going to help us, or like you kind of
Yeah.
like you have like immediate buyer remorse even though you haven't bought yet in the middle of the deal cycle.
So I'd love to hear from those of you that are attending here live. I'd ask a question like, where in their motion do you think you need the most overhaul for 2026? I mean, with top, middle, bottom of funnel, like where do you currently see that need? So let's throw a polling question up here while we keep this going. I mean, I think the challenge is sometimes, Brayden, like it seems like a lot of things aren't working well, but you can only pick and choose sometimes like one place. And so how and where do you pick and choose to get that done? It just seems like sometimes fueling the top of the funnel, if you aren't seeing the conversion rate you need, it's just more money that isn't solving the core problem, and that's not really helping. Well, let's get into it, and I want to kind of pass it off to you, and I'll manage the slides here, Brayden, but I want to have you kind of talk through kind of what we saw here, right? The invisible competitor sort of illuminating this dark funnel component of what we're seeing that's killing deals.
Yeah, I think the big one for me was like seeing almost 2/3 of folks say that peer back channel conversations are extremely influential, which is great because like that's our entire platform that we're building with SlashExperts is we're trying to make it very easy for folks to be able to have a back channel to talk to a peer to figure out like is this solution actually going to work for them. So that stat when we were doing this was the best one to see because it means that we're actually on to something, that what we're building is going to respond well in the market, that 2/3 of people already see this as an incredibly valuable thing to actually move the needle on a deal.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting. You look at the poll data that we got back, and actually, we had zero people say late stage closing a renewal
Yeah.
as part of their challenge, right? And it could be a function of who's here. Like if you're here and you're focused on demand gen, or you're focused on top middle of funnel, maybe this is sort of quote unquote not your problem. But like maybe that's part of the problem too, Brayden, is that we've got folks that are sort of like if we marketing is focused on top middle of pipe.
Hmm.
And if we're not seeing conversion, like, I mean, ultimately, if we're not making the bell ring, if we're not seeing metrics you can buy a beer with, what's it all worth? And so when you see data like that, that says, like, hey, we got a lot of really smart marketers on this call, and they're more focused on solving top and middle of funnel. What's your response to that?
I I think that like if the customer's already in the mix and like an expansion type deal is something that helps you move the needle to have someone renew, which is incredibly important because usually it's not making money for the company unless they renew like 2, 3, like year two or year three. So I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. Like as you said, marketing spends a lot of time top of funnel, getting people to
Yep.
come in the loop. And once after that, like there's not as much work done with reminding them of new features and the renewal kind of works. Sometimes it doesn't. So I think to constantly engage with those folks, introduce them to customers who are having success. I think that's where community comes into play. Is if you're a customer who's had huge success using a certain product and someone who should have like they're a perfect fit, like why not make that introduction like to customer? I think
Right.
that's a cool place to be able to use your community aspect as well.
Well, and the other thing I would say around this is like we try to drive trust in us as vendors, but
Yeah.
buyers trust each other more than they trust us, right? Which is I mean, it's a natural thing. But I think a lot of times when we say like, "Hey, we're trying to make it so they trust us, they trust our process, they trust." I mean, like 6 Sense spent a lot of time yesterday walking through their product roadmap, which is actually pretty impressive. But if you're trying to build trust in you, like at dinner, you sit next to someone who's actually using the product and talks through it. The dinner conversation, I would argue, is more valuable at driving proof and confidence than the product roadmap conversation. So talk a little bit about that from a sort of how we can better facilitate, not necessarily control, but facilitate those peer-to-peer interactions.
I think if you go to any B2B website, what you see on there is typically like, their big hero image. And then right below that, you have all their logos of who they work with. And like that is supposed to make you feel warm and fuzzy that you're like, oh, like you see all these big enterprise logos and it's enough social proof to say, okay, like I trust that if, ABC company is working with these guys, then I should take a demo or I should take a look at them. But I would say that so many of those logos are overlooked now. So many are the same across B2B that it's like the better play. And I would say a middle of the road play is people have started to add case study buttons underneath those logos, like see a case study of like
Mhm.
how they use it, which is great. I think
Yep.
like that's a great step in the right direction. But the bigger play is like, why not have a button that says, hey, you see, we work with all these logos. Do you want to talk to them? And you can
Yep.
actually push a button and book a time directly with one of the users at that company. That's
Yep.
where I think everything is moving because
Yep.
folks are already going to do that. They're going to look if they see a logo on there that like, oh, ABC company works with these guys. I'm going to go to my LinkedIn, type in who works there, and try to back
Mhm.
channel that software before I purchase it. So
Yep.
we're just trying to make that process easier. And I think that's where sales is moving, is folks want to have that peer-to-peer conversation before they move forward, or sometimes it's even after a demo. If a demo goes really well, awesome. Like
Yeah.
they're still gonna if they're spending 30, 40, $50,000 on a piece of software, like
Yep.
that's a fireable offense sometimes if it doesn't work. So I think that
Definitely.
you want to make sure you're doing your research before you purchase anything.
So I want to talk. I want to get into this concept of proof velocity, but like per that conversation, right? This concept of control. Like we want to control the sales process. The prospect wants to keep control of what they're doing. If we try to push too hard there, we sort of like we create too much friction, right? So I got this question from Dalius. Thank you, Dalius, for this. Like talking about like how do we overcome organizational bias, which wants to have full control of the sales process, and is reluctant to introduce experts until later stages in the deal.
You go first on that one. It's a good one.
Nah, yeah, I want to get your take on this.
I think that there's two ways to look at it. Way one is these conversations are already happening, which
Yes.
is like, and like from this data, like you're already being back channeled and you don't have control over it. And so wouldn't it be nice to be able to give you some control where you can actually make the introduction and see that a conversation is actually taking place, so you know that, hey, like I know this person as a prospect is talking to a customer and I can see that, and I know those, and I at least am able to encourage a list of customers I know probably have something nice to say about me rather than kind of being blind to it. And I think one is they're already happening, and so you need to just get comfortable with it and like do NPS scores, do things like that to know like, hey, the 10 customers you introduce are going to say hopefully nice things about you. And then I think the second one is if you don't do this and your competitors do,
Yeah.
I think like that
Yeah.
becomes the scary part, right? Where like
Yeah.
if like I mean, if you look at like the ones who do this the best, like the Salesforce Trailblazer type world is like one of those, like they are the benchmark when it comes to building community.
Mhm.
And you can very easily go into like their chat groups where there's a million customers in there all talking to one another. And
Yep.
I think that's the piece that all of us try to get to, especially in B2B software, because by having a community where they're talking about how they're using your product, that only helps with renewals, that only helps with word of mouth, that helps
Right.
with, get more sales in at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like it's better to not have full control of that, but still orchestrate those connections from happening. Like I mentioned, like dinner last night, I sat next to two 6 cents customers, and I think one was up for renewal. And I literally watched over a Southeast Asian meal a renewal happen, not because the rep or the CS manager was involved, but another peer was walking them through it. Like that's probably not going to show up in CRM anywhere. Your attribution model is probably not going to pick up that conversation, but the peer interactions very much it was a velocity driver of that deal. So I want to have you talk about proof velocity. Before we do that, I want to throw up our next poll. We're kind of talking about the dark funnel here, right? Like I don't love I don't love dark funnel, but you think about like platform influence, the things that are happening in the market that you don't see, the conversations that are happening open over dinner or in private communities. That pure validation that today is way too ad hoc and random.
Yep.
I'd love to get a sense from you today of like how confident are you that you have visibility into what's happening there today. So thank you to those of you for starting work on that form. Like talk about like I love this concept of proof velocity. I think this has a lot of legs, and we're going to see more and more people talk about it. How do you define proof velocity today?
I think for me, it's being able to find the information you're looking for, but before you actually purchase the software. So like having like proof around like does this work, does it not work? I think that everyone tries to like the past tools have been like case studies have been, as we talked about the logos on the site, being like, hey, here's proof these folks are using us and having success.
Yep.
And which is one, it's step one. But I think that a lot of the proof happens, as you just mentioned, off of your CRM, off of your platform, where it's just people asking questions to their peers, like, hey, I have this problem. Like, how do you solve it? Like, I think you see this more on LinkedIn now, and in like the communities, like the marketing communities, where folks will pose a question. You're like, hey, here's a problem I'm trying to solve. Like, how do you do it? And then, or like, hey, I'm looking for X kind of platform that does X. Like, have other folks done it? And like, they'll post and write answers there. And it's always really good conversations until the vendors get involved. And once the vendors get involved, then it's a little bit too much. Everyone's like, okay, yeah, of course, like you want me to take a demo, but I'm
Yep.
looking for the converse. I'm looking for like the opinions of my peers. And like, if you can have people that are true believers in your product and are able to like prove and say, hey, here's how we used it. I think that's how I look at proof velocity, the type of people that are wanting to spread the word that they solved a really good problem with your solution.
So we're going to double click on that here in a second. I did want to sort of reference the poll. So 0% people said they're very confident we track it well. 0% said, could you please explain dark funnel more? The majority of answers
Aren't we at
were
a perfect conference for a dark funnel? Yeah.
I guess, but like the majority of the responses were not confident we're flying blind, and that's kind of
Yeah.
where a lot of us are, right? I mean, even if you're sometimes saying like, hey, like I'm trying to connect people together, you don't know if they connected, you don't know what they talked about. Like you're just like when I give references to people, like I'm not in that conversation, right? And so like, did we lose the deal because the conversation didn't go well? Were there other factors? Did we win the deal that had an influence on that? So seeing that, you are kind of running blind a lot in how that happens. So let's talk about this proof velocity performance lever and sort of what happens and talk about what we saw. This is not conjecture. So part of doing the research on this was not just identifying a problem and a gap, but demonstrating those that are leveraging proof velocity in their metrics, that are better wrangling and better organizing social proof, peer proof, what the results they're seeing in their pipelines.
Yeah, I think a big one here was like how fast deals move. I think
Yeah.
the 48-hour like proof of like SLA was one of those that I think stood out the most to me, is being like when folks are looking for information around like, hey, like is this helping win rates or not? Like it's speed. So it's like once
Mhm.
someone's wanting to purchase, want to buy, want information, the speed that you get back to them I think was the most surprising to me here. Like everyone knows like if you go and take a demo on a site, like it's all about how fast you get back to them to put something in place. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the data bears that out, right? I think to be able to sort of say that we're seeing, significantly higher conversion rates, but also faster conversion rates. And the velocity piece, I think, don't let this get lost because oftentimes
Yeah.
when we look at our funnels, we think about conversion rates. I get this opportunity to lead or lead to opportunity, opportunity to close. And yet what I hear, like I'll hear constantly this week, like deals are taking too long to close. Yesterday, Brent talks about like just the massive volume of people that are in the buying committee that are involved in this. And we all know, like, if let's say it's a simple buying committee, and there's just four main decision makers. If you have three hard yeses and one soft no, the deal is dead.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
absolutely.
all of a sudden, those three hard yeses are like, oh crap, what did we not think about? What did we not know? And yet you bring in a peer for that social proof, and all of a sudden it starts to like the internal confidence, the internal anxiety starts to will away. If there's someone in your role that you believe in, that you trust, that says this will be okay, it is one of the single greatest drivers of confidence and velocity in your deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about like some of the tools that make that proof because there's a lot of ways that this can happen. Talk about the places that seem to be having the most impact for go to market teams today.
So like the big one here with like live customer calls, like being half, I think was just right what we've been talking about. Like having a
Mhm.
conversation with a customer, I think case studies help here if people actually read them, but having an actual conversation with a customer that is in your space. I think
Yeah.
all of us have done references a million times where someone like a prospect will ask, like, I need a reference of somebody who lives in Ohio, who's an insurance company, who's 100 people and who does, 100 million in revenue. They get very specific. And so like having actual like, hey, here's a customer who's going to jump on and talk about, how they're using this tool is
Yeah.
massive. So like I think that one coming back high was not a surprise. Recorded clips surprised me being like on there, like like the ones of like a customer talking about an actual like how they're using a tool like that was I mean it's cool to see that folks are taking those at face value, being like, okay, hey, these are helping me make a decision there. And then on the other side, like kind of like proof attributes, like case studies, use cases, as we talked about, like how do you solve X problem using this tool. The big thing is, and even seeing this week, platforms are doing so many things these days, and so like when you actually look at
Mhm.
like use cases, being like, hey, like how do you use this one tool, this platform, and have that help, is going to help, like because everyone's situations are a bit different, and so when you start talking about use cases, I think it helps move the needle for sure on these deals.
Yeah, and I do think there's something to be said for seeing someone versus hearing or reading from someone, right? Like reading a case study is great, but when you can actually see someone share that, even if it's whether it's a recorded clip or a live call, there's just something about the emotion you can hear from people. There's something
Yeah.
in body language and intonation, and it's not woo woo, it's real, right? You can tell when someone's saying something and they're kind of reading from a script. You can tell when they're speaking from the heart. I mean, I heard a guy last night, talk about the impact that like AI is having on his team and having on their morale and having on their success. And like he's clear, like he's happy and proud about that, right? And so a lot of people like this isn't a business decision. This is a personal decision. You like make your decision for your company, but that's also a decision for your career, right? And so I think hearing and seeing and recognizing that, I think our lizard brains actually do recognize those other senses more than we give it credit for sometimes. So let's talk about. I want to move from the idea of proof velocity into thinking about it as a KPI.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know if we need to go think about proof ops, right? And sort of how do we actually sort of structure and
I like that.
operationalize this? I mean, maybe I don't know. Like, talk a little bit about like the what proof op or just what operationalizing this into a KPI would look like.
So I think that like the idea of like tracking references is one of those things that none of us do very well. Like I would say most of that data is not in Salesforce. Being like, hey, like someone like this person did a phone call with X customer, and like this X customer's helped us close X deals. Like none of that is. There's never really been a KPI for that. Like when you get the usual motion of when you get asked for a reference was to hopefully avoid it. And then
Yeah,
someone's like, oh, like I need a reference at the end of the sales cycle before a deal closes, you like regrettably go to a Slack channel, you send a message, and then you find the same person, you send them over, and you hope that deal closes. And I think KPIs around like, hey, who are the people that are helping us move the most deals forward? Who are the customers who are helping us do that is a
mhm,
really great thing to look at. And like a lot of that lives within marketing, which is what we're seeing here. Like marketing usually owns the Slack channel or the spreadsheet of like, hey, we've gone through these 5 people have done calls for us. They
right,
kind of start over again,
right.
but a lot of that doesn't exist within like the actual CRMs that we're all using. And I think it could. I think like tracking like, hey, who helped us close the most deals last year as a customer would be really cool to look at.
Well, and so there's the act of engaging proof, and I think we're seeing the majority of this as marketing sort of owns this. But I think it's not just the relevance of the act, but it's also the speed of that act happening, right?
Yeah.
How quickly can we mobilize that right conversation in front of the right prospects? So I want to throw up our third poll question here. Is in our last the third poll. So when you need to deliver some customer proof, like how long does that typically take your team? And Brayden, I find that like remarkably few companies have a process for this. I find that like when sales has a request for some social proof, it kind of becomes a fire drill of like, oh crap, who can we get on the phone and are they available and can we coordinate someone? Do we have to ask for permission first? How does all that work? And so the longer you wait, the less impact it can have. And so this isn't just proof velocity of closing the deal; it's the velocity of getting that proof to happen in the first place.
Well, you're hoping to avoid it most of the time. When someone asks for it, you're like, oh man, someone's asking for like,
Right. And
which is a very
are you avoiding it because you hope that it just isn't a real objection, or are you avoiding it because it's just too much of a pain in the ass to go and orchestrate?
I think it's both. I think like one, like you're having to send it proof, like maybe you go and find a bunch of case studies and send them over and hope that that's enough. But like,
Yeah.
are those actually get read, or are you just checking a box? I think we've seen like as we rolled out SlashExperts, we have these pages we're building for these companies where you have like a 50 customers on there that you can book
Mhm.
times with and like real time. And
Yep.
we've seen a lot of the time where customers will send over that page and they'll be like, hey, here's 50 customers. You can book a time with any of them at any time, and
Yep.
like we'll see someone look at that page and then the deal will close, but like no
Mhm.
time will get booked because it's enough like proof to be like, hey, all these people are believers enough that you can do a phone call with them like this week. And that's pretty cool to see that motion work, because it's kind of enough of like, yeah, hey, like these guys are, they want to have a conversation,
Yep.
and they can't at any time. You can go to this page again, which has been pretty cool to see that motion grow.
Okay, are you ready for this? So here's what the polling question came out. So less than 24 hours, 0% of respondents. 2 to 3 days, 0% of respondents. The mix of responses came 4 to 7 days, and we don't have a formal SLA.
Yeah.
And the majority was them not having a formal SLA, which does not surprise me at all, right?
No.
Because this is not, it's not been a big enough focus because we haven't seen the direct impact this can have, and it becomes kind of ad hoc. And if it's ad hoc, it's not having the kind of impact you want to have on a regular basis. All right, we're gonna keep going. I'm watching time. I'm watching for questions. Thank you, Rodney, Daleen. Thank you so much, and thank you obviously to Sarah and Carla, our incredible team, for producing all of this and for helping to facilitate some of this while I try to manage the whole dang thing from a laptop in a hotel room somewhere. Okay, so let's talk about what high performers do well and versus those that are sort of not laggards. So what's fun about these kind of surveys, right, is like when we do research like this, we're trying to find best practices, but we're trying to find like how do actions correlate with impact? What are the things companies and people and go-to-market leaders are doing, and where do we see greater correlation between those activities, those focus areas, and having an impact? And so when we can ask people like, how have you been doing? Like, how's revenue? How's growth look like? What's your perception of what's your confidence in your hitting your number moving forward? We start to see a gap here. And these were the 5 areas that we particularly saw some very material statistical gaps. And so I'm going to walk through each of these a little bit, and then Brayden, I want to get your feedback on this.
Yeah.
Like having a tight, less than 48-hour turnaround on proof SLA. We didn't get into like which kind of format you're using, and it's still a pretty small percent, right? Given like this reflected in this poll we just did, but definitely, the laggards aren't doing it at all. The leaders are doing it at least somewhat. Proof attributed in CRM, having this tracked, having some metric that you're looking at that is proof velocity, crazy important. Cross-functional ownership of this isn't just a marketing effort. This isn't a sales effort. CS needs to be actively involved in this process as well. Twice as likely to have that for those that are winning, those that are succeeding and winning versus those that are still struggling. Automated routing, having this built in. I mean, maybe we can make proof ops a thing. I don't know. Maybe that's your category. But like the idea of having a real system for making this happen in a repeatable, scalable, efficient, fast manner. I mean, what is this, like almost 4x, right? Higher for those that are automatically routing that. And then continuous experimentation, not just throwing spaghetti at the wall, but being really efficient and disciplined at how you are testing new ideas and trying new things like what we're talking about here and automating social proof performance and workflows. These were the 5 things that stuck out to us as the things that if you're going to have a checklist of things to focus on trying to get better at coming out of this webinar, these were 5 that I put on that checklist. Brayden, sure, curious to get your perspective on this.
Yeah, I think the one that stood out to me here was the cross-functional ownership, because like when everyone thinks, which was like the previous slide too, showing like, hey, who owns this reference motion, and everyone thinks it's kind of sales and then marketing who kind of controls the customer relationship. But we've kind of as like a tangent, what we've seen work really well is as we've built these expert pages of like customers you can book time with, a really cool motion that has worked is not just having customers on there, but having actual executives internally and having like CX people on there that you can book times with as a prospect. So that you skip sales altogether, but you have a conversation with someone who's on like running the CX team. And that was a motion we weren't expecting. It's one of those where like almost like it's a very cross-functional company, very involved in trying to get a deal closed or a deal expanded. And so I think like the leaders in this space, like they know this, that like when someone's looking for a reference, maybe it doesn't always have to be like the marquee customer, but maybe it could be somebody on the CX team who talks to the marquee customer. So I think like that was a pretty cool one to see. The automated routing one was another one too, like making it easy and fast. And like, I think this falls into having an SLA too, of like, hey, like how can I make this easy for my team? And how can I make it easy for my prospects? Because when people are trying to solve a problem, time is of the essence to like, hey, who can get back to me the quickest and who can give me the proof the fastest?
Before we get into, so I do want to walk through this concept of proof ops and talk a little bit about maybe a maturity model. So if we were to say like everything we talked about today, if you were to put yourself in sort of a position, a maturity model for what are components of proof ops. I want to get there, but Braydan Dalius is maybe my new favorite webinar attendee because he now has his second really good question, and I'm going to paraphrase. If you're doing an enterprise sale and you're up against like legit competitors, they have case studies too. They have success stories too. They probably have videos and stuff of customers as well. So if everybody has it, how do you make yours special? How do you make yours stand out? How do you add more value versus sort of the traditional case study formats we see everywhere?
For me, it's you can talk to them live.
Yeah.
So it's like actually having a like so reading a case study is one thing. I think sometimes those get used in enterprise, maybe. I think, but being able to actually have a live conversation with a customer, being like and like
Hmm.
having not like so like not having the sales person or the marketing or account manager there, but like, hey, I trust my customer enough to talk to this prospect and talk about how they're using us. Like that is the piece I think that stands out. And like
Yep.
that is the one that we're trying to encourage to happen more in the sales process because I think that's the piece that helps you stand out amongst the other companies that are involved in the RFP or whatever it might be.
Agreed. Agreed. Okay, are y'all ready for this? We are. I want to talk about sort of the idea. Let's see. Um, let's talk about this concept of like the plays that we want to have for 2026, right? So, like, what are the things that we want to see happen? Tested AI-driven engagement, yes, definitely want to see more of that. Plan to test role-based communities, yes. Allocating higher percent of your budget to experimental channels, I think that's really important. Not just to do more of all the same stuff you've always done, but to sort of just continue to sort of try new things. And 62% of the people we talk to, they're expecting like greater, over 26% of go-to-market strategy to be experimental in 2026. Is that a scary thing, Braydan, for companies to have to work through? I mean, versus doing more of the same versus trying new things with a higher risk of failure?
No, because I think they need to try new things. I think so many of like the old channels we've used for so many years are this one they just don't work anymore. Or like maybe they work, but like the numbers have to increase. So maybe you got like a 2% response rate on 100 emails. Now you get like a 0.5% response rate. And so I
Right.
think like if you're not experimenting or trying new methods, then I think that's scarier. So I think like having some sort of budget there, being like, hey, like we're gonna try something new to see if it works with our customer base, with our
Yep.
industry. Like that has to happen, or I think like you unfortunately die.
Yep. All right, I want to. We're gonna do this as a poll, and I want to get a sense for where people think they might be in a conceptual proof ops maturity curve. So we're gonna throw up four areas of sort of good, better, best. So we're sort of fragmented, coordinated, automated, strategic, and there's a little description of what this might look like for you. And this is current state of where you are in proof ops. And obviously, if you're an earlier stage, look, we all live in glass houses. We all start where we are. This is an emerging space, right? I mean, this idea of creating some precision and speed and velocity in proof development and sort of having just candidly just having sort of a coordinated streamlined way of directly connecting prospects and customers, directly connecting peers to have conversations. This is new, right? And so you may not be that far along. You don't have SLAs because this hasn't been something that has been a priority. But curious to see where people are at on this front, and then we'll sort of move forward a little bit. I mean, Braydan, since you had the idea of SlashExperts and since you've been rolling this out and obviously sort of neck deep in it, like where have you seen the market go? Like, especially as you start to talk to early stage customers about this concept of proof velocity.
I think that there's two camps. Like there's one camp where folks are really nervous about poking the bear, being like, I don't know if I want to put my customers front and center, being able to have conversations with my prospects, which a lot of that, like that's a shrinking camp where folks they know they need to do this in order to grow. So I think we had a very large camp of that at first, being like, I don't know if I want to talk to my customers to get them out in the open. I have my 3 customers I reference and I'll talk to everybody else. And so like
Right.
I think those people know that like they can't do that at all. Then there's the other camp of like, yes, like my customers love me. They
Yep.
want to see us grow. Like they put me, like they put that they know my software on their LinkedIn. Like let's put a button right in our website that says talk to a customer front and center. And
Yep.
like that's been really cool to see that motion grow. And I think that's where we want everyone to move towards because that like that's the piece where like your customers love you. You've solved a problem for them. Like you know
Yep.
they're going to renew. Like that. Those are the folks that I think are going to survive the long term through this crazy AI world that we're going into are the
Yep.
ones where their customers are solving a problem with what they're rolling out and they love it so much that they're willing to shout from the rooftops and talk to prospects and do references and like be a case study for them.
So thank you for those of you that continue to sort of complete our polling questions. Just so Braydan, so we said we had levels for fragmented, coordinated, automated, strategic from good, better, best. 0% in strategic, 0% in automated. Everyone's kind of split between coordinate and fragment, which doesn't surprise me at all, given what we've seen so far, and given this is fairly new. So let's try to land the plane a little bit, and let's talk about like what are the things we can actually sort of focus on to improve, right? So I think like to me, there's kind of like there's four. Oh, excuse me. There's four things I want to summarize here, and I would wrap this around the idea that right, like proof is no longer like content. Proof needs to be a system,
Yep.
right? So how do we focus on the confidence gap over the broken playbook? If most teams aren't really confident their current motions are working, the data proves that we need to sort of move to new plays that are going to win. And those may be migrating from top of funnel to more bottom of funnel focus, even for the demand gen marketers, to ensure that the interest you're generating is getting conversion. I think there's a trust shift versus the invisible competitor as well. Like buyers, recognizing that buyers have always relied on peers and communities more than vendors. And we now have an opportunity to operationalize that a little more than we had before. I think the proof velocity concept of ensuring that we can deliver on that proof and deliver on it quickly. Proof velocity meaning velocity of the deal, but also it's also velocity of delivering on that proof. Really important. And last to me is the idea that the best teams don't leave trust to chance. They're operationalizing it. They're building systems, putting in for SLAs, and having true ownership models that make it deliverable and repeatable. Want to get your feedback on that and sort of this idea that like we are creating a system, not just a set of tactics.
I think it needs to be a system. I think that the motion of like even before you have a demo to after you have a demo, like there needs to be, as you said, a proof process there. Like, hey, like these folks liked us enough to hop on the call, or they
Yep.
liked us enough to explore our website. Like, how are we going to get them over the hump of like being able to actually like implement this tool or whatever tool you might be selling? So proof SLAs, I think, is a huge one. Being able to get
Yep.
the proof fast and the right proof. I think like if an insurance company inbounds or takes a demo, like sending them proof of like somebody who's in finance is not what you want. You need to have proof for like the different markets you're selling into as well. And I think peer validation, like having actual live calls and clips and champions who talk about you, like I think like that's so important because like not all of us can do user conferences right off the bat. And so I think that like having actual people that are true believers that are willing to have calls. Like I think that's what takes you from an SB company to a large company, and it
Yep.
takes you from an enterprise company to being able to sell more. And so I think like that's those are important things to have in place for sure. And then also like the budget. I mean, I see so many marketing budgets where they're allocating more money towards like ads, which I think is great. I think like ads work sometimes, but I
Yep.
think like they're only going to diminish. And so like experimenting and trying new things is going to be key, especially as tech changes. And so I
Yep.
think like that's for me is the biggest one that have budget for 2026 or 2027 where it's like, hey, we're going to try a new motion to see if this works for us to build pipeline because the current stuff is only getting worse.
All right, so we're getting to the end of the formal portion of this webinar. Thank you, everyone who's been attending live. If you are attending live, you will literally be the first to get this State of Go-to-Market Innovation report. It literally dropped right now. So the State of Innovation report is now live. You can get the full report. You can see all the data. As part of that, you will also see the go-to-market maturity benchmark. So if you want to go through the stages of maturity around proof ops, discuss that with your team, talk about what it would look like if you were able to make progress on that. You're going to have that available to you. If you're watching this on demand, you're going to have access to, well, if you're here live as well, you'll have access to this on demand. You can download the full report. You can request your team's proof ops benchmark session. So I think it's one thing for us, Brayden, to talk about this sort of. This isn't even conceptual, right? This is real
Yeah.
data. This is real, like this is real stuff happening. But I think the further landing of the plane is going to be okay. Like here's what's happening as an industry. What's happening in your organization? The unique variables of your team, your go-to-market motion, your industry, the maturity of your category. All those variables are going to define how you would implement a proof op system in your organization as well. Talk about like just best practices you recommend for companies that want to take this to the next operational level.
I think like one of the big ones is to get a list together of like, hey, who are our like who are our advocates for this? Like, who are the customers that we can reference that love us that would we want to do phone calls for us? I think like that's step one. I think step two is figure out like what does your proof look like now? Like what is your sales team sending? What's your marketing team sending for
Yeah.
proof? Like what does that look like? Is it
Yep.
like are they like is it working? I think like are there downloads there? Is the gated content working? I think that's the second one. And then the third one is like kind of see like which channels bringing in the most pipeline for top of funnel, then like post demo, like see like what's working. I
Yep.
think the communication between sales and marketing for post demo is really important, because I think that usually marketing stops with like, hey, if someone came inbound, they or whatever, like they took a demo, they took a call, and then like marketing is out of the mix. I think it's important to talk about like, hey, third or fourth call, what made them move forward? Like, what was the proof that helped? Like that sort of stuff. I think is kind of a good third step.
All right, so you'll get an email tomorrow. If you were here live, you're going to email tomorrow with everything, with the digital recording, with the links to everything. You can find a lot of that online. Go to slashexperts.com. I'm happy we have time for a couple questions here before we wrap up. So if you have any final questions for us, please throw those into the chat. In the meantime, let's talk about, like, let's say you're attending this, and let's say you're like, I'm in. We need to do this. How do you talk to your boss about making this a priority? Like, what are some of the talk tracks you would recommend, whether you need to go to your CMO or go to your head of sales or CFO, to sort of make this an operational priority in 2026 plans and budgets?
I think the big one for me that you can use internally is like, hey, ask them the last piece of software that your CEO or CFO bought, like how they heard about it. And
Yep.
like, hey, like how, like, did they talk to a peer? And that's how they found out about that product that they purchased, the last software they purchased.
Yep.
And like when they found out about it, like what was the motion like? Because I think that that'll reinforce that peer-to-peer conversations, peer-to-peer sales is huge. And then you'd be like, yeah, there's a platform that makes that easier for us.
Yep.
Is and like we can experiment with it, and let's actually use it, because I think that that's the way you're purchasing, and that's the way our prospects are purchasing,
Yep.
and we need to make it easier for them to get the information they want from peers like them. So I think that's the big internal piece you can use. Hey, the last piece of software you bought, had to hear about it.
So we're really, I mean, this is an operating system for trusted proof, is what we're
Yep.
talking about here, which I think is really, really exciting. And I think we're going to hear a lot more about this as more and more companies lean into it. Braydan, thank you for doing this with us. Thank you for doing this
Yeah,
research with us. Honestly, it's just, I think this is exciting, and an exciting growth area for marketing teams. I think it's one of those things that's going to help marketing and sales and CS teams work more closely together, because they're going to see the impact this has, the impact proof velocity has on velocity of deals, velocity of renewals, velocity of upsell and cross sell as well. So thank you for doing this with us. Thank you everyone for attending live. I know everyone's really busy this time of year, but appreciate y'all here. If you're watching on demand as well, definitely get a copy of the report, get a copy of the maturity model, put that in front of your team, have this conversation, and start to figure out, like, how does this help you improve your metrics and velocity in 2026. Until then, Brayden, I'll probably see you downstairs here in a little bit.
absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate you guys. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.